I'm sure we all know somebody who loves their steak well done. And I mean, I get it. Nobody wants raw meat. Nobody wants their steak or their choice of red meat to still be mooing when they eat it. But at the center of it, a lot of these people want it well done because there's a stigma that any red meat that still looks red or still has a pinkish reddish color to it, it tends to be not done and we need to cook it a little longer. But then there's also the stigma that those juices that come out of it are also an indication that that steak or that piece of red meat is not cooked appropriately. But if you're like me, then you know these juices are just to signify that this steak is actually cooked the way that we need it to be, and it will result in a really flavorful meal. So is this really blood, or is this something totally different? Today's episode of Cooking Myths Explained, I'm going to ask the question, is that really blood? I'm Chef JLCE, and I'm going to either be debunking or affirming these myths to be true through analysis, research, and my own professional chef experience. So let's start right at the beginning, picking away and chipping away at this myth. I'm sure nobody wants to eat meat that isn't cooked properly, but some people tend to cook meats a little too hard because of this stigma that this stuff is undercooked because of a certain color or because of the color of the juices that ooze out of it. And some people, I understand, they eat their meat a certain way, but I'm telling you, I don't care how you feel about meat, certain meats just shouldn't be so well done to the point where not even water could put any moisture back into it. The level of juiciness or the level of doneness is dependent upon the amount of time that meat spent cooking. And because of this, that also means that we need to be dependent on the internal temperatures of that piece of meat to determine its doneness, so that way we can eat it properly. This is why we have internal temperatures that we can follow to help guide us to the correct doneness. Unfortunately, the stigma is that when people see that juiciness, they automatically assume it's blood, and that piece of meat isn't quite done yet. But we must understand first that there are some safety standards that protect us from eating something raw. According to the Food and Safety Inspection Service of the USDA, there are recommended internal temps for cooking different kinds of meats. But how does this tie into the main question? If you understand that there are internal temperatures set in place to determine doneness, then you understand that if you reach a certain temp, that means that that meat is cooked to a safe temperature to consume. And at certain temperatures, especially with the steak, there will be colors, there will be juices that are usually serving as visual aids in indicating that doneness. So that means that we can eliminate the idea of it automatically being raw just based off its color and juices alone, especially if we haven't checked its internal temperature yet. But that's only half the deal. We still need to figure out if this juice that comes out of this steak is blood or not. And hopefully my findings can help us draw up a conclusion. What you're seeing on your plate after you've cooked that steak or that red meat after you've cut it, the juices that come out is what's called myoglobin. The juices that come out are a mixture of mostly water and myoglobin, which is a protein found in the muscle tissue. When the iron in myoglobin is exposed to oxygen, it turns into a reddish pinkish color. The difference between red meat and white meat is the amount of myoglobin that animal had in its muscle tissue. More myoglobin equals a redder color, aka red meat. Less or no myoglobin equals a less reddish color, aka white meat. The origins of how dark this blood appears begins at the time of harvesting the animals. When an animal is young, it tends to carry less muscle tissue, resulting in less myoglobin. When a pig or a chicken are sent to the slaughterhouse, they are usually younger, resulting in a pinkish or light red color in the meats. Cows, however, tend to be older at the time of butchering, so the liquids from beef chucks or steaks appear darker. I must also mention and make it perfectly clear that the actual blood of the animal is completely drained before it's even sent to the store or meat shop where you get your choice cuts from. Nearly all states are required by law, the Humane Methods of Livestock Slaughter Act to be exact, to render animals insensible to pain before the act of slaughtering and bled out, with the exception to religious slaughter, meaning no matter how red that steak goods or blood that comes out, it's actually bloodless. My professional advice, the next time you cook a steak, try to shoot for a medium. When the steak is cooked medium, it usually has a rosy red or pinkish color to it, and is slightly bouncy upon touch. A quick way that you can understand the level of doneness is if you take your hand, now all your thumb, every time you touch one of your fingers, if you feel this muscle right here, it's going to tell you that level of doneness. You can usually go by this, and this be pretty accurate. So these two fingers touching together, that's about a rare. This one is going to be medium rare. This one is going to be medium to medium well. This one right here is well done. Thumb to first finger, rare. Thumb to middle finger is about a medium rare to medium. Thumb to ring finger is about a medium to medium well. And thumb to pinky is well done. Now, if you touch right here, if you can't really bounce through, if you can't really poke through and it's kind of hard, that means your steak has cooked way too long. That means that meat is going to be way too tough for you to eat. You're going to be moving the whole table when you cut through it. If the sight of that reddish pinkish color throws you off, you can always cook it to medium well. Medium well will just have a thin, kind of thin line, or just a slight, it would be really light pink basically. But I just want you to know that it's safe to eat, and it's not going to do any harm to you, okay? Obviously, I don't advise you eating anything raw, but there are certain temperatures and things in place to protect us. But if you're still skeptical, I completely understand. So to get that perfect medium, you probably want to cook your steak about 6 minutes on each side, depending on the size of the steak. If that steak is kind of big, or if it's fairly thick, has a lot of girth to it, you might have to cook it a little bit more, maybe 2 to 3 minutes more. Just keep an eye on it. And then when you're done, let it rest for about 10 minutes. You let it rest so that way it can keep cooking. By the time it's done cooking, it should reach that level of doneness that you're looking for, and it also holds in those juices a lot. So that way when you cut it, you don't get a big mess on your plate if you're not really into that thing. But by this time, if you're cooking it medium, those red juices should be turning about a dark red to a brown at this point. Meaning, you know, you might see a little red of a color, but it wouldn't be anything that would throw you off, especially if you're somebody who, you know, doesn't like the sight of it. So I think we've come to the conclusion. I ask again, is that really blood? The answer is no. It is myoglobin, a protein found in the muscle tissue of animals enriched with iron that turns red upon exposure to oxygen. This myth has been debunked.